Yo, this is Steve Bloom, and you're watching Moana Nui Podcast. We'll be starting soon. Don't go anywhere.
I'm Veronica Taylor, and from myself and Ash Ketchum, I just want to say, Moana Nui, I choose you!
Aloha, everyone. Welcome to the Moana Nui Podcast. We're so glad to have you tune back in with us. If you joined us for our earlier episode, we got to sit and talk with our panelists about Disney Plus new series She-Hulk. So if you missed any of that, definitely go to YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, or Twitter to be able to watch that episode. There's a lot of good laughs and a lot of great conversation with that. But of course, for those that are new to the show, let us introduce ourselves. My name is Dana. I am the other half of the Moana Nui Podcast. I'm also an event planner, a con event, and cosplay photographer. I photograph MomoCon, DragonCon, several other cons, and you even see my photos with DC Comics. And also, I'm a voice actor outside of my day job. And now I'm going to hand it over to the other half of the Moana Nui Podcast, the founder of the show, the yin to my yang, and the lovely, illustrious Moana.
Aloha, everybody. It's Moana here. Good to see everybody tonight. I'm really excited for tonight's show. I think this is one of my favorite shows on our particular podcast. Suan is always bringing the heat. And so I'm really excited for tonight's topic. But for those who may not know me, my name's Moana. I am the founder of the show, as Dana mentioned. I'm also the publisher for our imprint here at Burning Spear Comics and the Wildcard Chronicles comic book series, and a children's book author for the Adventures of Nakoa and Nohea series, which is a series that follows two young Pacific Islander children on all of their watery adventures. And of course, a champion for our BIPOC community. So thank you all for being here tonight. Please engage with us in the comments. I'm really excited to have this conversation.
Exactly. And of course, before we bring all of our wonderful guests and the illustrious Sue Ann Hong, who always brings so much good information for this segment. A couple announcements. One thing, for those that are new, the Moana Nui Podcast, we'd like to definitely highlight different Kickstarters, especially with so many in the BIPOC communities that JD's asking if I'm wearing a Power Rangers costumes. No, I am wearing a kickball t-shirt because we had kickball today. So I'm wearing my kickball t-shirt right now. But as Moana mentioned, she is a children's book author. And one thing we like to do is highlight different series that are from the indie community that is giving that diversity aspect that many people are looking for. And one of them is Moana's children's book. She's currently have a Kickstarter out for her third children's book in the series. So if you are looking to support, or you have some little ones in your life that is looking, that you love to give some other books to them, and also teaching them Hawaiian as they're reading the book, please go to her Kickstarter. The link is in your comments. And of course, a friend of the Moana Nui Podcast, Malachi Bailey, is turning his books into a comic book series. And the first issue of her will be with Wingless Comics, and his Kickstarter is going right now. That link is also in your comment section, so definitely click on that link and go and support both of these projects so we can make a lot of things that we want in entertainment come to life. And with that, I would like to introduce our moderator, the person responsible for this Develop Your Talent segment, Sue-Ann Hong, and she is the CEO of CAPAW. She's doing some amazing things for a lot of women in the community and around the United States with several initiatives she has going. And of course, if you love this segment and love to support CAPAW, please go to the website and you can go and there's a donate button. Click on that and give your support to that. You'll see the information, how you can follow CAPAW right in the banner below. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and bring Sue-Ann to the front. Welcome, Sue-Ann.
Hello, my sisters. How are you?
Good to see you.
It always seems like a month is so far away, but it comes so quickly, and I'm so glad for it.
Yes.
Absolutely. I'm so excited about tonight's segment. So
Yes. Definitely. And of course, as we get ready to introduce our panelists, this is definitely a new lineup of panelists and something different, in which Sue-Ann will, as you read these introductions, you'll understand why this is a little different than our usual lineup of different guests. Our first panelist for tonight is Anjana. She is currently serving as the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for Red Cross at the national headquarters. In the last 20 years, so she started at the Red Cross at 10, she has had the opportunity to work with the International Red Cross and Save the Children US. She's worked in over 30 countries in humanitarian and development settings where she conducted situational analysis, designed and managed programs, developed training curriculum, and build capacity of local teams. And she has also developed a program guidance and strategy pertaining to community-based psychosocial support, children protection, gender and diversity and inclusion. So let me go ahead and bring up Anjana. Welcome, Anjana, to the show.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome.
Welcome. And Jay, man, one of our faithful people that watch our show, it says aloha, ladies. And our next panelist, Juan, he works at the national headquarters of the American Red Cross, especially on the diversity, equity, and inclusion team as a DEI business partner. He's a dedicated DEI champion and dynamic leader, moving the organization forward every day. He is also a native English and Spanish speaker with proficiency in Russian, with a wide range skill set that includes employee engagement, metrics quantification, diverse talent acquisition, social media marketing, impactful communication, marketing campaigns, project management, and basically one thing y'all know about anybody that comes on the show, they do not have a short bio, and I'm trying to make this very brief. All these people do some amazing things, and this is not another show of some amazing people. He is also a diverse and articulate strategist with broad experience implementing initiatives across levels and functions in international organizations, with a focus on facilitating positive change and architecting an innovative workplace. So help us welcome Juan to the show. Welcome, Juan.
Welcome. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And then last, but certainly not least, we have Anna. and she is breaking barriers for a living. As a Chinese transracial adoptee, first generation college student, and privilege only child, she emphasized the importance of intersectionality. Uh, with her background, she's held various positions in research, nonprofit, healthcare, and hospitality, and is currently serving as DEI admin analyst at the American Red Cross. She is also, although she is new to the organization, she is proud of how they are undergoing mission adaptation, to create more equitable change, and particularly interested in fighting the white saviorism complex. She also enjoys listening to podcasts. So now she has been introduced to a new one. So we look forward to you to tuning in and listening to us also. And she likes trying new foods, being in nature, and advocating for mental health. She hopes for the future where the voices of the underrepresented and underserved are amplified instead of silenced. And let us welcome her to the show. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. We're so excited for this episode.
Well, we're so excited. And as I mentioned at the beginning, something different. Usually Sue-Ann gets somebody from the nonprofit sector, the corporate sector, and different sectors to kind of have their representation. This is the first time we've had all our panelists from one organization. So we're very excited to have this conversation, and we're going to now hand it over to Sue-Ann. Sue-Ann, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Dana and Moana. As usual, you are always welcoming us in such an amazing way. Everyone, I wanted to bring these incredible individuals from the American Red Cross because, you know, I'm new to the National Diversity Advisory Council for the American Red Cross, and I have learned so much about what the organization does. And one of the things that I think is really important is to talk about they're a very, very mission-driven organization. And I love their culture and value when they say sleeves up, hearts open, all in. I love that. And they talk about being ordinary individuals, which I don't know if it's necessarily ordinary, but with the innate desire to do extraordinary things. And I think you're going to hear from these incredible leaders from the American Red Cross and the fact that they're bringing really wonderful things to the table. So one of the things before we start is they have 5 key values, and they call it the 5 C's. So I want to bring that out because I think it's important to know what the values are: compassionate, collaborative, creative, credible, and committed. And tonight's topic, especially around race and gender intersectionality, how this translates to the real world, you think about the values of what I just said and how that aligns to their personal stories and how their personal values align to the organization. So with that, I'm going to start off by asking Anjana to tell us about your journey and what led you to the American Red Cross. And as second part is, give me a few of the services they offer.
Sure. So do you want my story first or the services?
Story first. Always.
Okay. All right. So I really started with the American Red Cross 21 years ago. Back in India, we had a huge earthquake. Over 20,000 people died. And through the generosity of the American Red Cross donors, our American Red Cross colleagues came to India, and they were looking for young psychologists to develop a program to help people recover from their psychological, emotional needs after the earthquake. And I was just so privileged and so honored to join that team at that time. There was so much learning. And what I really loved about the American Red Cross programming internationally was also that they wanted to build on the existing coping mechanisms in the communities rather than just bringing something foreign from America to India to our communities. And since then, I've just been with the Red Cross movement and have worked in over 30 countries and just was kind of, we were doing inclusion work at a time when we didn't have those terminologies, especially in that context. So if I were to go to all the services that we provide in the American Red Cross, we have disaster relief, where, domestically in America, we help people when, in their toughest time. We also provide life-saving blood. We also do training and certification in swimming or CPR, first aid. We also serve our military families. We help support with mental health and resiliency. We also help make connections between families. And we also have a wing that, like I said, serves in the international side.
I think that, I learned so much from attending these NDAC meetings because, when you think about American Red Cross, from my perspective, it's about blood donation. So all these other spaces that you're in to serve the community is absolutely incredible. So Juan, tell us about your story and how did you get to the American Red Cross?
So I don't think my story is as inspirational. I was young in my career. I was looking for a role or a career in the DEI space or HR space. And I have always been told that I am a people person and that, working at a nonprofit would probably be very beneficial for me, and utilizing my skill set. So I found this role at the American Red Cross. I joined the team. And then after 3 years, I was looking for growth opportunity. And so I actually left the Red Cross. I think when you leave the Red Cross, you realize that you never truly leave. A part of the Red Cross always stays with you. You see it everywhere. I started seeing it at my bank, at messages happening on the news, anywhere on commercials. I would always see the American Red Cross. So then after 2 years of leaving the Red Cross, I was actually asked to come back and help with Latino initiatives and Latino engagement at the DEI level, national level within the organization. And I could have said yes probably more quickly. It truly is a blessing coming back to the organization. And I also felt like I just picked up where I left off a little bit with folks that were in the organization. And it's like you're working with family almost. And then in terms of services offered, I'm so glad Anjana already talked about all the amazing work that we do as an organization. I wanted to touch a little bit on what we offer our employees and volunteers. So we have 7 resource groups within the American Red Cross that cover very different and demographics or affinities. But some examples are Umoja, our Black African American group, our Latino resource group, our women's resource group, the Ability Network for people with disabilities, AAPI group, of course. I can't leave here without mentioning them, and a few others. And then I also wanted to talk through some of the learnings that we offer. We have our monthly cultural competency series sessions that we host internally, Learning to Action, and even pushing out our new Inclusive Leadership Foundation courses across the organization. So thank you.
Amazing, amazing. And Juan, yes, it is inspirational. And by the way, I do see Red Cross all over because you're wearing the shirt.
Right. I keep seeing signs. I don't know where they come from.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for that. Anna, how about you?
So I feel like I manifested this into my life. I visited the DC area maybe a month before that this position opens. And then given my experience, I felt that this was the perfect role for me, right? I wanted to leave. I would say my city is still pretty diverse, but I wanted to find an area that was even more diverse. And when I think about my story, so what I was transracially adopted, and I think that a common narrative is a lot of like white families, I think especially, will sometimes see children from different countries and say, my intent is good, right? I want to adopt, I want to be able to help a child, but then necessarily the mission orientation doesn't align. So maybe they'll take like a colorblind approach, right? So, or maybe like, I've even connected with some Asian transracial adoptees who said that at the beginning of COVID, like their parents have been explicitly racist towards Asians, right? So maybe like that, when we speak about these concepts of intent versus impact, how that comes into play. And that's something that I'm really interested in, especially at the Red Cross. So at our NZAC meeting, right, we had some folks come in and talk about how a lot of the services that we're trying to provide make them more equitable within our mission delivery, right? So partnering with the organizations and the communities that are already there. So maybe if we don't have that relationship yet, those organizations do. So then we can serve our mission at a broader level. So we already brought on some people, right, to work on those diverse partnerships. We have a new team member. I got to shout out Nuruddin. And thinking about also kind of, so I'm new also, but something that I learned about is like the mapping technology, right? So something that we didn't have 5 to 10 years ago is that we were more saying, this is the amount of meals that were provided, but not necessarily identifying what the communities were. And then we can break that down even more and say, you know, these communities were underserved, these communities were underprivileged, and then break down, you know, you can get into the demography from there.
So one of the things with the American Red Cross, I'm hearing you say, Anna, is the fact that they're actually using data and technology to really focus on what communities really need to be served and prioritizing. So we'll get into some of that later as well. But let me ask you this. So from a perspective, since our conversation is around intersectionality, how have you each experienced that intersectionality between race and gender personally? And let me start with Juan on this question.
No, well, thank you for starting with me. Although, even as I'm going first, I'm thinking about the privilege I hold as a male, even though I never realized it when I was younger that was privilege. And so, as a person of color, at being Latino, when you are faced with either discrimination or with challenges against you, you already develop a sense of, you know, how is it that I can hold privilege, right? And I couldn't see it. When I was younger, I remember asking the question of one of my college classmates of, you know, I'm male, but I'm gay. Does that cancel each other out? And the answer is clearly no, it doesn't, right? And I had to open my eyes and also do a little bit of unlearning around what privilege I do hold and how I take up space, whether it's in a virtual room or in a physical room, and come to terms with that. Also being that, right, a lot of stereotypes that exist within Latino culture are of machismo. And that's like the big, strong, burly guys, and we're manly men. And I have to shout out to my father as well for just showing me that from very young. He's always taught me that, you know, no matter who anyone is, no matter how they identify, it's all about respect and showing someone respect. And so I've always carried that with me. So that's my quick bit on race, as well as, you know, gender and how I'm starting to construe it in my head.
Well, first of all, there was a lot of nuggets there to unpack. First of all,
Yes.
Juan, do you want to share about what is your ethnic heritage?
Yeah, so my family is from El Salvador. I was born in the United States, so I identify as Latino.
So how did you know about privilege? When did that come to light for you?
It came to light when I would see that I would not get asked to do certain tasks, whether it was cleaning the dishes, cooking, serving the food. Those were tasks that were given to the females in the room, at a party, in a social setting. And so for me, I had to be more cognizant of that, right? Because when someone holds privilege, you ignore that. That's something that sort of comes as a benefit to you, and you have the privilege to ignore it unless you're intentionally creating awareness around it. So I would intentionally create awareness around it, and I would be the one to step in and offer myself to wash the dishes, clean something, serve something. to sort of break that stereotype and that mold a little bit in my family, as well as just within my community. And any other time I would see it as well in the office, even, right? If you start seeing the women in the office start serving the sandwiches for lunch, like, oh, no, let me help you. Trying to change that up a little bit. So those are some instances, very personal, where I would start seeing that privilege. But also in college, there was always experimenting with gender and doing a little bit of drag. It was not good drag. This is not RuPaul's Drag Race drag. But in sort of experimenting with gender, you also start seeing a little bit of understanding of how another person can live their life, right? And the whole notion of walking in her heels can be taken very literally, because heels hurt, right? It hurts to wear heels, yet there's like an expectation to wear them, just like we have expectations of women or non-binary folks, to act a certain way, to be a certain way. So yes, that I'll stop right there.
I love that, and that's a great perspective. Because again, walking in somebody else's heels, to your point, that's, that is really a way to create that connection and understanding, compassion, and all the things that we've talked about. But Anna, how about you? Tell us about your intersectionality journey.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Juan, for sharing. So I also want to acknowledge my privilege, right? I think that one of the main areas of privilege that immediately stands out for me is like financial privilege, right? So when I think about the fact that, yes, I was a first generation student, I also held the privilege that a lot of individuals don't have. And I think that that was very clear. So when I was younger, I did a lot of code switching, right? And when I think about also race and then gender intersectionality, I think the reason that I'm so passionate about the DEI work is that as a woman of color and then raised by a father who fits into, white male, heterosexual, cisgender, like all those statuses, I had to learn how to not only navigate it, but really validate my experience, because for a while I didn't have the skills or the knowledge or the research to understand that, right? Because I think about that more so when I was younger, like elementary school especially, I didn't have Asian representation, didn't have, females in role models and like high positions of power. So felt in those aspects a lot of time that relating to kind of like when you think about like Twinkie or banana, like you're yellow on the outside and then white on the inside. And really how those dynamics came into play.
Oh, there's so much there. I can relate to so much of that. And especially in being in corporate America, having worked in corporate and just the whole trying to fit in and the whole assimilation with your intersectionality and how much is too much, where you lose yourself almost, and then have to pull yourself back, So, but the privilege piece, we had an individual from Facebook who said, privilege is very important to acknowledge in intersectionality. So that's huge. So Anjana, how about you? Tell us about your journey.
So being born in India, in Delhi, we also like to call it the rape capital of the country. Girls when you think of being a woman, a young woman, a girl, and in Delhi, it's hard to think of a lot of privileges, and you're only focusing on a lot of vulnerabilities as you're growing up as a young woman. But we all have our privileges, right? And I think for me, as a young woman in India, it was a privilege to be growing in a very, very diverse society where so many different languages were spoken. And so you were automatically just speaking multiple languages, listening to multiple languages. So when eventually I got into the Red Cross and I was able to travel around the world, that really helped me to connect to people from various different cultures. And when you're able to do that, you get a lot of insights, right? And you learn a lot. And that for me has been the greatest privilege, just to be able to learn from the wisdom of people really, really at the grassroots level. Oftentimes I used to say, you go to some of these poorest villages, right, in Africa, in Haiti, in South Asia, and you realize the resilience that people have, right? And I often felt like I was the greatest beneficiary as a Red Crosser, not the people that we were trying to serve, right? However, coming back to just the race and gender intersectionality here and now in the United States, being a brown-skinned woman is not easy in the professional world. You are often on the bottom when it comes to promotions or hirings or recognitions, and right. And so you always almost have to work harder, right? Sometimes you can be totally invisible. And in addition to just race and gender, add to that intersectionality that you're an immigrant. You don't speak English with the same accent, right? Your choice of words don't always resonate for the rest of the Americans. So I was just talking to my boss, Adrian, a minute ago, and I was like, you see me with the eyes of your heart, because a lot of people don't see me, what I may have in me, because it's not in the same package as usually, right, the way it goes in America. And so, but at the same time, your privilege of being able to connect with people across cultures continues to be a privilege, right, to be able to make those connections and navigate through the society.
You have such a unique view because you have really seen so much of the world. I wish that a lot of us could, have that view, because I think we would probably have more compassion if we were able to be exposed to so many different cultures. But so let me switch gears a little bit. With all of your experiences and obviously, opportunity to work through various challenges and whatnot, did you ever have either a mentor or a sponsor who supported you through this journey, and what did that look like? So let me start with Juan on that one.
I appreciate this question on mentorship because I've had so many mentors in my life, and they can be informal mentors or people who don't even know that they're mentoring me, and of course some formal ones in all steps of my career. As it relates to race and ethnicity, there are a few that come to mind, right, that I've worked with before that have been in professional corporate spaces and have helped me to sort of navigate the code switching and also navigate my personal feelings. I remember going to my first national conference, and you look around the room at a national conference and you don't see many professional Latinos there. You go to the large dining hall banquet, and you're looking around and you don't see a lot of people that mirror who you are, except for the workers. At the hotels, you'll see that the workers are Latino. They're the ones serving you the food. And I remember at one point feeling guilty early in my career, feeling just completely guilty because I could see my mother, I could see my father being that person. And I remember having a conversation. Her name was Debbie, and Debbie just explained to me, roles, and then the roles that we have to play as well as leaders, and sometimes the pathway to leadership is not easy. But the pathway that you're clearing will hopefully be a pathway for others to follow, and for others to not have to experience what you're experiencing. Within the Red Cross, I feel like I'm learning every day from everyone, even folks who are here, right? Suan, I just met you. Anjana is my boss. Anna is my colleague. And every time I hear their stories, I'm learning something new. I'm learning about different dynamics as it relates to race, ethnicity, and gender, and so many other, demographics. And I admire our leadership. I want to call out Adrian, our Chief Diversity Officer, for creating so much space for us to be ourselves, our authentic selves. Yes, she's absolutely amazing. And I don't even think that sometimes she realizes she's mentoring me, but I mimic her. I mirror what she's doing. Our last Chief Diversity Officer, Floyd Pitts, I still utilize some of his techniques and methods to approaching DEI work. And I just absorb. I absorb as much as I can. Carmel, who is our SVP of Finance and one of the main persons who was involved in bringing me back to the Red Cross and engage in Latino initiatives. What I love about her and what I've been learning about her most recently is how do I tell the story of DEI enhanced with metrics, enhanced with numbers, right? So I've always said I am not good with math. Another day goes by that I don't use algebra. That was what I used to say. And then I hear Carmel talk and I hear her confidence in, someone who knows the numbers, knows, money, knows where it goes, how it's handled, and how do we approach conversations, right? How do we make the business case around DEI? And I've been inspired by that, right? I've been inspired to sort of continue in that and my learning on utilizing data and metrics to continue telling the story around DEI. So many different ways I've been mentored. And I think people just think it's a one-on-one meeting. But I think, mentoring can happen in so many different capacities.
Juan, you bring up a good point about mentoring through observation and also role modeling. And I think that's another way. And that's very important. And because you're not going to get a chance necessarily to have one-on-one with everyone. So what are ways you can pick up some of these key things that you're like, ooh, I like that style, or, I really appreciate the way that they're delivering on something. So that's a good call out. Anna, how about you?
Yeah, I love this question also because I would not be where I am without mentors, right? So I think that mentors and podcasts, which I love, really changed my perspective and caused me to level up and see things in a new way. So I really appreciate this also. And I love, Juan, how you were talking about when you said, Adrian, who's our boss, you don't know if she knows that you're absorbing that information, because it's funny when I think of just the communication style and the confidence. And we always have this joke where we always talk about the notion of something, right? Just picking up on these little methods of communication. And when I think about a mentor for me, one of my strong mentors who comes to mind, her name is Juisa. I have to mention her also. I think she was actually my first mentor who was a woman of color, and she also happened to be biracial, so kind of understood those dynamics of not fitting in with one or the other, right? The intersectionality that they both can happen together. And also want to say that we didn't really even have one-on-ones either. It was more so, she is actually my boss. So really just spending time and understanding, picking up on these small nuances and those communication skills as well. And she just had such bright ideas, such big ideas, and really, leveling up where I was thinking, right? Because I used to be very transactional, or not transactional, but detail oriented, thinking about the small things. And then she would really bring a big picture for me. So yeah.
I love that. It sounds like she helped you understand, what are you really contributing to in the bigger picture? And so the impact is more than just your task. So yeah, that's a good boss. If they can, it's kind of like asking the janitor of NASA, what does he do for a living? And he says, I help people get to the moon. That's that bigger picture of why my job is important and who am I serving. So Anjana, how about you?
Juan and Anna, I've had several. And right here, Mr. Juan Garcia here, he doesn't know, but every single time he's speaking, I pay a lot of attention to him and learn a lot from him every single time he's speaking. And it's like, you're the sage in my life right now. But I want to go a little backward in my early life as a young adult. Somebody called Kanti Chandrakar, Kanti Auntie. I used to call her Auntie. In India, everybody's Auntie, right? Even if they're your neighbors. Auntie, uncle, there's always a relation there. And what I learned from her was that she was always eager to serve, no matter who came, how many people came, with appointment, without appointment. Her husband was a doctor, and the clinic was downstairs, and she always had a smile. And she didn't make very complex or big meals, simple meals, but she would always serve a tea or a cookie or some lentil and rice, and that for me was continues to be an impact. And I still till date, for me, it's really important to be able to host, to be able to serve, whether it's through the Red Cross mission or whether just through the personal life. How can we nourish each other, whether that is with food, right, with physical or with spiritual, emotional ways, just nourishing others and not getting tired of it and not doing it. One of the recent things I learned somewhere was sometimes meme can be also teachers, because I recently learned something through a reel on Instagram, and they said, don't say I have to do something, but say, right, like I have to go to work today and I have to work on this project. Think of people that don't have work. So say I get to go to work today. I get to work on this project today, right? And so same thing. And I saw that in her, like she always served with all her heart. And then the second person I want to mention is Henrietta Spears. She used to work with me when I worked for Save the Children, and she now is like my second mommy. She's from Louisiana. And she grew up in a very poor household. And she said, Anjana, we didn't need windows in our walls because we had holes. She grew up in that sort of a environment, and now she's a licensed mental health worker. Amazing person. And she always teaches me about empathy, right? Always trying to learn from people, try to right. You can never fully understand what's going on in another person's mind, but really putting yourself in their place. And she takes me in a spiritual journey. Faith-wise, I'm very grounded in faith, and she too is, and we both happen to be Christian. And one of the things that Adrian and I were just talking about is sometimes we want to fight, right? Because there's so much coming at us. And one of the mantras that she's given me is be still. Right? If you're drowning and you make a lot of movement, you're going to be drowning more, right? But if you just let your body just float on the water, you will be able to survive and thrive eventually. So those are the two people. And Henrietta also is so important for me because coming from India, it was very hard for me to understand the race and the racial discrimination and the systemic discrimination. And Henrietta, coming as a Black woman coming from Louisiana, she really has helped me not only understand the systemic issues in America, but also when I'm interacting with people from different races in the American context, what does it mean and how should I interpret and sort of navigate through that?
Absolutely. It's complex. Right. It's complex because it's all in the context of where you're at, but you're bringing all of these other cultural acumen and cultural nuances to the table. I was curious because of the type of work that you all do. And I look at it as it's very emotionally driven work. There's a lot of emotional investment in the work. So I'm curious, Anna, how do you stay resilient? How do you manage that so that you don't get overwhelmed?
I think it's all about community, connecting with those people that you really care about, especially, when you're overwhelmed. These are deep and these are harsh conversations. And it's funny that you mentioned that because last Thursday we had our team meeting after, and we were all getting into deeper conversations, right? So we could get to know each other better. And in that moment, I just felt like my spirit needed to be released, like it needed to say something. And I ended up crying. But I think that it helped everyone get a better understanding of, you know, how I was feeling at the time and help others get a better understanding of who I am, right? Because vulnerability is really important, because if you don't, show up and tell others how you're feeling in that aspect, they don't know how to help you at the same time. So I think that it's really all about connecting with the people that you care about, and, really trying to find the community.
That is so important, especially when we've not had an opportunity to meet face to face and now we're just starting. So, I mean, community looks very different these days. So what about you, Anjana? How do you deal with the emotions of it all? Because I'm sure it can be very taxing.
It is. So I'm going to just move my camera just a little bit, show you one of my biggest source of resiliency. That's my husband. You want to say
hi, husband?
He's also a Red Crosser, and my son Abraham. Family comes first for me. They are, and my Red Cross family. So, right here, Anna, Juan, Adrian. Whenever I've gone out in any mission, our Red Cross family and my immediate family is really the greatest source of resiliency. I talk a lot. I have to process it out by talking. But at the same time, I think what's key is self-awareness. Over the years, that is something that I've built. Like, I know when I have to shut down. I know when I need to pick up the phone and call my husband and say, you know what, this happened, right? Because it is a huge responsibility to be interacting with people who are suffering. And if you're not going to be aware of your own stress and your own energy that you're bringing to that context, you can end up doing more harm than benefit people. And do no harm is an imperative for our work. So self-awareness, and then making sure that you are doing everything that you need to nourish your own soul and take care of yourself is really, really important. And friends and family play a big role, in addition to exercising and music and good food and things like that.
Absolutely. And hopefully having some fun too in there somewhere.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Juan, what do you do? What's your way of managing through stress and emotional depths?
Now, I'm so happy you asked this question, Sue-Ann, because I am still figuring it out. I'm still figuring it out. And I want to be transparent about that, because I don't have an answer that is going to be inspirational or that's going to be easygoing. I every day am trying to figure out how to continue to deal with the emotions, right, that comes with doing DEI work. The emotions that come with, facing issues that deal with gender, race, ethnicity. And I try to take the practical approaches, right? Prayer. I run, I try to exercise, I try to keep a stable mind. But sometimes it's hard. And, like Anna mentioned, like sometimes you just have to let go of those emotions and I do allow myself to cry. I do allow myself to process. I also come back to the people who I consider my healers, right? Which is one, God, but two, my parents, my mother and my father. And I stay rooted in what they have taught me around resiliency. Migrating to this country over, 35 years ago, completely moving their homes, establishing a new home, facing challenges, language barriers, discrimination. And here I am around the same age that they were coming to this country with so much more privilege because they set me up for that. Yet I know that I have to continue. So I stay rooted in their story, knowing that I am just a building block of their lives as well, right? I'm standing on their shoulders. And so I know that I have to be resilient because of that. But in the practical methodological work behind it, I am definitely still figuring that out every day. And sometimes it's harder than other days, but I like to be transparent around that because I don't think there's just a one and all solution. I think it is almost like a journey and an ongoing healing effort as new issues also come up.
Well, you could have different issues daily that require different ways of addressing your emotional needs. So,
Exactly.
I love the fact that Juan, you're very connected to like the past, present, future. It seems like you're very connected in your history and how that shapes you, and then how does that push you forward. So I really appreciate that about you.
Thank you.
So let me ask, from a perspective of the Red Cross mission, can you share any examples where you've impacted community, something that touched you personally, something that, that your work directly impacted the community that you serve? So any examples of that? And I'll let you guys jump in, whoever wants to start.
How about Anjana?
I too was thinking of Anjana. She has the most international experience and domestic experience in deployments as well.
There's so many examples. I was just thinking, which one should I pick? Since Ukraine is on everybody's mind, let me bring an example from there. The last time when the Crimea intervention happened, I was out there doing conflict analysis between, not Russia and Ukraine in that moment. I was doing a conflict analysis between the internally displaced population and the host communities within the country, because, right, even the languages between East and West Ukraine are different, and people were just feeling, all these people are coming and encroaching in our lives, and now we have to share resources. So we had to, we were looking at programming around that. And I remember sometimes just conversations and opening up spaces for people to be able to share can lead to healing, right? And I remember, and Red Cross has been that platform for me, for folks to just walk on their path of recovery. And I met with this a couple, they were both in their 90s, and it was snowing, it was white, it was covered with snow, and these were tin shelters. So tin shelters, in hot, they can be very, very hot. In cold, they can be very, very cold. And here I walked into their little trailer kind of shelter, and this very beautiful old lady, she was just sitting, and I was holding her hand, and she said, God has forgotten us. Because when I was 16-year-old, that's when the Second World War happened. And I saw my brother exploding on a landmine, going into pieces. I lost my father to that. My husband and I were young kids. We got married and we built our life. And now we are in our 90s. Tell me, how am I going to rebuild what I've left over there? Right? Because now she was far away from her hometown. She's like, God has just, right? Forgotten us. And we were holding hands, and she's crying, and I'm crying, and I don't speak Russian. She was speaking to me in Russian, and there was a Ukrainian Red Cross person. We always work through our local colleagues. And even through the interpretation, where I'm crying, and I'm like, God has sent me all the way from America just to tell you that he's not forgotten you. And we are here to listen to your needs and meet them as much as we can. And so those moments, right, always, always, always stay with you, because all of a sudden somebody's so lonely, they've given up hope, and a Red Cross hands comes and holds their hands and talks to them and gives them hope. And that's the end goal, right? From another example, from right here in America, just 3 years ago, during the flooding in the southern part of Texas, around very close to the Mexican border, it often floods there, and we were working there, and there's area called Las Colonias. So these are unincorporated houses where a lot of time people that are undocumented live there. And so even though we will open our shelters and we will have our fixed feeding sites, people feel afraid to come out to Red Cross because, to any helping agency, because they're afraid that the government officials will see them and will deport them. So one of the programs that the American Red Cross has is called Latino Engagement, and we have trained teams that are culturally competent and also have the linguistic ability to go and connect with those folks. And so 2 weeks after, we're still going out and we look for these through the maps, but it's very hard to even find those people who are in unincorporated houses through the maps because they don't show on the maps, right? They pop in and they pop out. So what we do is we take our emergency relief vehicles and we take them in these colonies and ask, right? We ask people, where else do you think there are more housing? And so we go house by house. And I remember 2 weeks after the flooding, you would think that, all needs are taken care of. Somewhere they've gotten. And I remember taking the stuff to this particular lady, some food, some cleaning items. And as I walked down and entered, she came running to me, hugged me, and she's crying. And she's like, you're the first person coming to help me. And I remember taking that stuff inside her home. And it was hard to breathe there for more than 15 seconds because the house was still full of mold and everything. So if not for the American Red Cross, no one else was going to go look for those undocumented people. Right. And so those are some I could go on and on with those examples, but just to give you a little flavor of our work.
It touches my heart, and it hits you right in the center of, it's the reality that's hitting, right? That's the reality, which is what we're talking about here. So Juan, you were going to say something as well.
Yeah, well, no, it's hard to follow up Anjana, and I think that's why both Anna and I wanted her to go first. But I quickly just want to touch on what Anjana said around Latino engagement teams and supporting that around the work that I've been working on too with the Latino Resource Group. I know there was a question in the chat around ERGs and feeling siloed. And how do we push for more intersectionality? And so, it's, who are your advocates within the organization? The way our resource groups are split up is that we have an executive champion, so someone on the C-suite that represents each of those resource groups. And then we have national co-sponsors that continue to advocate, and they're probably at a VP or senior director position, followed by national co-chairs and steering committees and various leadership roles. But we also have 3 areas within the resource groups that we like to promote out as focus areas. So one is business impact, right? How is, or you could also call it mission impact. How is the resource group impacting the mission or the business of the organization? Second, professional development. And third, networking. And I think having those goals, not just created by your national co-chairs, but really coming from the top, asking your executive champion clearly, hey, what would you like us to focus on? How can we help to benefit the mission of the organization? What can we do to better our organization or our processes? How can we serve truly as a resource to the organization is sometimes a conversation that gets missed, right? Because that responsibility is put on usually lower level folks to try and figure out what to do. And truly what we need is more push from the top of what are our goals and what do we need to achieve and how can we also influence others through their voice to take action. And so when Anjana brought up the Latino engagement teams, I thought of the Latino Resource Group and how much the Latino Resource Group has grown within the past 2 years. to the point now where not only are we holding a lot of different learning sessions for our folks, we created a mentoring program that's also tied to our HR processes, and we are tracking promotions and movement within the organization. But on the mission side, on the mission impact, the Latino Research Group is now equipped to be called on to see if we need Latino engagement team members, to see if we can invite others to become involved within the mission serving work, especially with Latino or Spanish speaking communities or undocumented communities. And so I see that as a success and alignment within the different departments that exist within the Red Cross. And I think sometimes, for the person who asked that question, it's hard to find that alignment. But I always like to say, you don't have to figure it out, right? There are folks at the top that can also help you do that. And you just have to challenge them as well. And don't be afraid to challenge them, because you're showcasing your own leadership in doing so.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, it's got to be both, right? You've got to have grassroots efforts, but then you also have to have direction, vision, mission that's aligned to the organization. So that's huge. So, Anna, how do you support the DEI team? What are the things that you do that enables them to do their work?
Yeah, I'm glad that you reiterated the question, because after Anjana's, I was like, wait, what was the question again? Yeah, so I started with the Red Cross about 2 months ago. And it's a large organization, so there are a lot of initiatives and efforts that we're working on. And so I'm a DEI admin analyst, and I think that part of it is kind of like a project event coordinator, and part of it is kind of like an executive assistant role. So we have a lot of initiatives that we're working on, and some of them are around, right, like pulling the data to really tell the story. I think that that's a big initiative that we want to work on, because we collect a lot of data, right? Juan mentioned earlier that we have a cultural competency series every month. So I kind of think of it similar to like a lunch and learn, where we have people come in and share their expertise and their experience, and then we can help really help Red Crossers take that lesson and apply it to their daily lives or their like daily work, right? And I think that, for example, like that's just one area where we're collecting the data on how many people are leaning in on these. And then a lot of efforts that we're working on is with our workforce and volunteer staff, right? Increasing the demography in that aspect. So we have some charts that we send out, or like presentations that we pull out, where we want to be able to be hold ourselves accountable for that, and then share with the organization where we are, right? So we'll break down demography by like race and ethnicity, and then right now we have binary gender, which we have a working group we're working on, and kind of break it down by departments, right? So biomedical services, humanitarian services, national headquarters, and then also breaking it down by what position you're in, right? So we can see executive leadership, and then we can see professionals, and then we can see volunteer staff, and seeing how those really come aligned, so we can come together to use this data in a way that we can adapt the mission to be more equitable. And that's kind of what my role is.
I love that. Well, you need the data and you need the story. You need to marry the two, right? Because data informs you whether or not what you're doing is working or not working, and what you need to adjust. So that's very important. So believe it or not, we're past our time. Can you believe how fast it flew? So I'm going to give you each 10 seconds to let the audience know how they can engage. What are ways that they can engage with the American Red Cross? So Anjana?
Sure. We would love for you to come and volunteer with us. www.redcross.org. Come to your closest chapter, and we are really trying to diversify our staff and our volunteers with various skills. So if you want to serve your community, please come on in, and we have a lot of free training. So we will provide you with the skills and training to serve your community.
Thank you. Juan?
Yes, I mean, I love that someone already put it on the chat, redcross.org. Every region has their own specific areas of ways to get involved. And so please check out regionally as well how you can get involved. Don't please go overwhelmed by the national initiatives that we discussed here today. There's a lot of ways to get involved locally. And we can't wait to have you on board.
Thank you so much. Anna, take us home.
Yeah, I'd also say that even if, maybe DEI isn't the area that you're most interested, there's so many different organizations and initiatives within the Red Cross that you can really lean into. And we welcome volunteer partners. So for example, like sorry, this is over 10 seconds. But there's so many like great initiatives. Like for one example, we're using artificial intelligence to help with like a lot of the aquatics programs, and we're bringing in that equity lens as well. So just want to put out there that there's so many different areas and you can definitely find something that you're interested in.
Very good. And if people want to reach out to you individually on LinkedIn to get more information, are you open to
Absolutely.
people reaching out?
Absolutely.
All right. Are you all on LinkedIn?
Yes. And yes, there are youth programs. And yes, Jose, you can volunteer in El Salvador.
Woohoo. All right.
Yes.
With that, I'm going to put us to close. We could go another session, part 2. And I would love to bring Dana and Moana back on. Thank you so much to our panelists tonight and the American Red Cross for the incredible work that you're doing. And I just feel very privileged to be on NDEC with all of you.
I definitely agree. Definitely.
Yes, thank you.
And I know Juan wanted to answer one of the questions from the audience asking if there's youth programs that the Red Cross is offering that youth can be part of.
Yes.
Okay, so awesome. So as they said, definitely go to redcross.org. Look at some of the initiatives both locally and nationally and also internationally. If you're like Jose, who mentioned about volunteering outside of the country, that you can go and help other places, because we already know like Puerto Rico and so many other places got devastated with hurricanes and much more. They need all the help they can get. So definitely go to redcross.org and see how you can help, not only individually, but you may even see how you can do something with your corporation to also help. I know my corporation is doing stuff with the Red Cross with the initiatives from the hurricanes. They do it every year. So we definitely see how you can integrate that into your corporate culture also.
Dana,
definitely tonight was a great conversation.
Thanks to Sue-Ann.
Yes. Sue-Ann sees me so much because not only is she on here, she does stuff at my company also. So if you would like to book Sue-Ann, please contact her.
That's right.
Go to CAPAW.org. You see it in the little runner of the banner right there. Go to the website, send a message saying, hey, love the topic that Sue-Ann had for Develop Your Talent. Love to book her at my corporation, and donate to CAPAW, and she will come and speak because she's done numerous things at my company.
Thank you so much, my PR person right there.
That's right. Dana's all of our PR.
And then it looks like a user says another, an awesome panel. Thank you to our panelists. Yes, I definitely agree. This was an amazing panel. Of course, if you all are open to doing a part 2, please let Sue-Ann know. We'll schedule a part 2 so we can continue this conversation because as Sue-Ann know, we polled our listeners and the people that watch us live of what topics they wanted to hear for developing their talent, and this was one of the ones they spoke on. So we wanted to make sure each month we spoke on a topic that they asked that they wanted to see, and thank you so much for helping them to have this being spoke on here at the Moana Nui Podcast with all of your insight and all of your stuff that you've done within the communities. And we thank each of you for all of your impact both whether you think it's small or not, it's a huge impact for what you're doing, and definitely giving each of you your roses. As someone mentioned in the chat, you're giving people roses that impact you, but you're impacting people through this panel tonight. So
Yes,
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Moana, any last words before we go ahead and go into the outro?
Nope. Just thank you so much, everyone. I definitely look forward to connecting with you after this and finding some ways for us to collaborate together further.
Exactly. Well, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to the Moana Nui podcast. Definitely tune in for next Thursday. We're going to have, of course, our other monthly segment for mental health, Rain Talks. She is going to be talking about burnout. A lot of people experience it, and you got to see the mental impact burnout can do to you. So tune in for that episode next week. And also, we're going to have another panel of our Disney fans. They're going to be talking about the new Pinocchio movie that was on Disney Plus. So definitely tune in for that next week also. So everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're watching this on a replay, please share this also with your friends and family so they can learn about this, because the only way to create more intersectionality is to talk about it and do something about it. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and have a great evening. Bye everyone.
Thank you all.
So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will.
If this the land of the free, it was a freedom then, when they annexed Hawaii and called it Cedar Lands, without any type of payment and no signing off. Called themselves the Republic in 1894. 1.2 million acres overtaken from the native Hawaiians. When they resisted, the West retaliated in violence and erasure. The Hawaiian language is banned as part of colonialism's plan to expand,
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. No work out for all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.
So if you put Hawaii into perspective, well, Black and Asian history is interconnected. Considering the fight with the Pacific, then of course, versus Asia, they was treated as a middleman for war, but didn't let the Western colorism run its course, cause dark skin was a sign of dignity to core. The land was taken in the name of capitalism, when prior to it was an actual kingdom. Clap back at the system.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. No work out for all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will.